Imhotep, my peeps. It's been a while, I know, and this has been a couple of tries because of so many things going wrong during this video. Um, I've been out for a good while, out at school, if you saw my last video, and I've been trying to get qualified with my job. But other than that, it's just been real busy. And I had to buy Bandicam finally. But yeah, a lot of stuff's been going down. There was one video that I saw a few weeks ago that piqued my interest. Sargon Avocad recorded it, and I wanted to put in my 2 cents with some of the stuff he put in. But probably something that irks him as well as irks me is the mix of religion and politics. Because, I mean, I can understand if religion informs someone's politics. It's like, well, I think this is important, so I want to implement this in politics. But at the same time, I am fully against the mix of religion and politics. And growing up, this was a big thing because during the Bush era, when I was a teenager and a young adult, evangelical Christians were trying to push down their morality via legislation. And I was vehemently against that. And nowadays you can see a little bit of that starting to creep in with the left and paganism. As you can see here, Monsters, Men, and Magic, Why Feminists Turn to Witchcraft to oppose Trump. And I am just against that, as I am with evangelical Christians and Republicans. I don't think religion and politics should be mixed at all. And you can see this happening in the past with the election. Them trying to hex Trump and all that stuff during the 2016 election. And when he was going in and on about witch hunts, and a lot of witches were saying, I'm offended because you're calling it a witch hunt. And it's like, oh my god, shut up. But yeah, it keeps happening, like right here. And I'm just like, what the fuck? But yeah, Sargon, he reads this particular article, and he admits that he's being rude because he's an atheist, and he's like, yeah, fuck, I don't believe in magic. And, to a certain extent, I can understand that because, why give something credence that you have no belief in? But at the same time, it's like, bruh, at least he admits to being rude, I suppose. But I'm gonna read through this and put in my 2 cents, just like Sargon did. Whether it's hexing the president, chatting in WhatsApp covens, or featuring in TV reboots, radicalized women have been finding strength in the ancient pagan arts. This is a time for getting scary, the writer Andy Ziesler told Elle magazine on the eve of 2017's Women's March. We need to go full witch. Why? I don't know. The dawn of the Trump administration, witches were suddenly everywhere in the U.S. Neo-pagans used blogs and social media to circulate popular rituals for hexing Brock Turner, who served less than 3 months in jail after he was convicted of sexual assault. The Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, accused of sexual assault, which he denies. And Donald Trump himself. The Trump curse was enacted by thousands of people, including the singer Lana Del Rey. I'm a witch and I'm hunting you, declared Lindy West in the New York Times. Jess Zimmerman and Jaya Saxena wrote a self-help book, Basic Witches, more like basic bitches, in which they explained, if you speak when you're told to be quiet, take pride when you're told to feel shame, love who or what and who you love, whether or not others approve, you're practicing witchcraft. I've never heard of that particular definition of witchcraft before, but whatever. Half the women I know call their group chats covens. Why, I don't know. It's supposed to be a spiritual convening of things, not to denounce or talk shit about a particular politician. But what do I know? Trump developed a penchant for tweeting the phrase witch hunt in caps whenever he felt persecuted, which the conservative political cartoonist A.F. Bronco dramatized exactly the wrong way around, with the Democratic leaders Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, depicting as gun-toting witches on the hunt for a helpless mortal man. I cannot say. Pop culture exhumed every witch it could find. In 2018 alone, there were high-profile reboots of Charmed, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Sabrina worships the devil now. It is very confusing. And Dario Argento's Suspiria. In the final days of her 2016 campaign, Trump's opponent, Hillary Clinton, the first female Democratic nominee, has been accused of participating in ritual sex magic and attending a witch's church with her female friends. By early 2019, right-wing religious groups were accusing Democratic Congressman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of belonging to a coven of witches that cast spells on Trump 24 hours a day. As for Hillary Clinton and Cortez, or Ocasio-Cortez, yeah, I mean, that's just, out in the left ball field. But with Sabrina the Teenage Witch and Charmed and Suspiria and all that stuff, it makes me wonder if paganism and witchcraft are going more mainstream nowadays. I mean, if you were to go to particular malls throughout North America, I've seen, in fucking Spencer's Gifts and like Fuego in different places, they're selling crystals and sage and different kinds of spell books and different things. So I think witchcraft is going more mainstream, but at the same time, I think there's a bit of a detriment to that in the respects that, more people are discovering witchcraft and they think they can use it for whatever agenda that they want. Whether it be more right-wing, left-wing, they can apply it to politics, and I think that's completely wrong. But yeah, AOC is like, what? In this way, this was a tradition. The witch has always been the feminist monster of choice. Not really. In 1968, the group witch descended upon Wall Street in black, pointy hats and cloaks, semi-seriously intending to hex it. They also released hundreds of live mice into Madison Square Garden during a bridal affair. Marriage was a reoccurring target of ire. The leaflet announcing the action chummily invited women everywhere to confront the horror makers. And no, this was never a part of a tradition, being a witch and being the feminist monster or whatever. During, the medieval period, the tradition was to persecute Christian women if they were a little different or if they had property. I mean, you can look into it. If they were kind of like out in the backwoods and they practiced cunning craft where they healed people with herbs, or in the case if, like in England, you were a witch finder, or if you accused somebody of witchcraft, you could attain their property as part of a reward for, finding out the witch. So that was largely the motive for accusing people of witchcraft. It wasn't, independent women being persecuted. But yeah, the whole marriage thing, it's like, oh yeah, of course, married women are horror makers. Seriously. Yeah, this is something that we have to take seriously. And Sargon makes a good point in this case. Feminists, he says, would do a lot of harm if they had actual power. And I have to agree with him. A lot of these third wave feminists, they say, oh, well, why do people say that we're man haters? Because they hate men. They don't care about the plight, certain plights and problems that men face, and they ignore that in the case of, largely incidental problems that occur with women, like, say, the AC units in an office building or something like that. I think a lot of feminists, if they had the power, would actually try and use it to hurt men. Especially if you go like with Judy Bindel or oh god, I'm trying to forget. I remember her name. She was saying like, I want to take men and stick a high heel in their mouths like a stuck pig with an apple. I can't remember her name for the life of me. But in any case, yeah, I could see that. Witches have always been women who dared to be groovy, courageous, aggressive, intelligent, nonconformist, explorative, curious, independent, sexually liberated, revolutionary, read the manifesto. You are a witch by being female and tamed, angry, joyous, and immortal. No, not historically. All that, and you wouldn't even have to eat a baby, because witch actions could be done with a small group, and were both fun and political, they quickly spread around the country. Boston women hexed bars. Why, I don't know. Washington, D.C. women hexed the presidential inauguration. Chicago women sapped everything, Joe Freeman wrote in her reckoning of the movement. The subversive idea that powered both the witch hunts and the 1990s wave of teen witches, the idea that by gathering together and hatching plots, women might obtain heretofore unthinkable power, had also fueled much feminist organizing throughout history. Men were right to be worried. Feminists weren't literally going to steal their dicks and hide them in trees, as medieval witches were said to do, but that did turn out to be a surprisingly apt metaphor for their work. And although witches were joking, the witches weren't. Oh god, they make that fucking distinction. Witchcraft and occultism were really heavily associated with a certain kind of mid-20th century cool. The Beatles put Aleister Crowley on the cover of Sgt. Pepper. David Bowie studied ceremonial magic and the Kabbalah. Led Zeppelin incorporated tarot cards in their album work. Stevie Nicks sang about ancient Welsh fairy brides and posed with a seemingly endless array of scrying crystals. Most people's interests were merely aesthetic, and still is, but then as now, some found that witchcraft resonated on a much deeper level. The San Francisco Bay Area, the center of boomer youth culture in the U.S., saw an explosion of neo-pagan traditions, including the witches' coven that initiated Miriam Semos, or as she soon to be known, Starhawk. Oh man, this gets into it. Yeah, I'm gonna keep going. Starhawk's 1979 book, The Spiral Dance, quickly became the premier text for self-taught witches. As seen through Starhawk's anarchist eco-feminist lens, witchcraft was not just a way to acquire magical powers, but was deeply a political act. The word witch carries so many negative connotations that people wonder why we use it all, she wrote. Yet to reclaim the word witch is to reclaim our right as women to be powerful, as men to know the feminine within as divine. Some trash the spiral dance for being a new age self-help manual disguised as a radical manifesto. Others complain that it smeared its far-left feminist agenda all over what was supposed to be a spiritual text. Yeah, that might be my last criticism. Either way, the spiral dance sold vastly more copies than your average book on feminism and had a far greater impact. There's no way to know how many women stumbled across sentences such as, women are encouraged to explore their own strengths and realizations. They are taught to submit to male authority, to identify masculine perceptions as their spiritual ideals, to deny their bodies and sexualities to fit a male mold, and emerge radicalized on the other end. But I do know one who did. The Spiral Dance was the book my friends and I moved on to when the Wicca Spell book lost its allure, making it, by my count, the first book of feminist theory that I ever owned. Which is really weird. I don't know if I ever read The Spiral Dance, but I have read several of Starhawk's books. And to a certain extent, I can understand the, her environmentalist bent, but I was never really a huge fan of her feminist or anarchist stuff. I mean, I can understand activism to a certain extent, but yeah, other than that, it's just shouting into the breeze for me, and it doesn't make any sense. When the witch emerged as a contemporary figure of resistance, it was hard to tell where she came from. Hollywood iconography, feminist history, the coming of age of the craft generation, or the optics of the 2016 election in which a presumed to be monstrous woman was ritually castigated by a man who led crowds in chants of "lock her up." No, it didn't have anything to do with Hillary Clinton being a pagan or anything like that. It had to do with her previous record as the Secretary of Defense. And that doesn't have anything to do with her being a woman. I'm sorry, but that's true. Watching the chants take over the floor at the Republican National Convention, Rebecca Traister wrote, "I was not the only person in the room to be reminded of the 7th century witch trials, the burning, blustering magistrate and rowdy crowd condemning a woman to death for her crimes." I wonder what she would have thought if she saw some other male, Giles Corey, or some 15th century scientists being accused of heresy and whatnot. Yeah. The new feminist identification with witches seemed to draw from every version of the myth at once. Mystical and monstrous, feminist academia and horrorcore aesthetics, drawing them together in one angry, intentionally ugly repudiation of American patriarchy. Lovely. I don't believe in patriarchy. You might as well be talking to me about the Illuminati. This is not to suggest that witch fever has always been or was always admirable or never silly. Witchcraft, like feminism itself, went mainstream. Yeah. And in doing so, lost some of its vital power to shock and disturb oppressors. What oppressors? The spirituality tag of Gwyneth Paltrow's online shop Goop contained articles on tarot. Oh my god. And if you've seen any of her shit on crystals and what, it's terrible. Don't listen to Gwyneth Paltrow, please. Urban Outfitters stocks spell books. There I go with the fucking, mall shops and spell books and shit. Makeup brand Urban Decay released an Element style eyeshadow palette decorated with alchemical sigils. Sephora briefly offered witch kits with tarot cards and bundles of sage inside. I remember that shit. Which were pulled due to public outcry. Pagans accused Sephora of trivializing their beliefs, but Native American protesters also pointed out that smudging with sage, a practice that comes attached with its own long history of religious persecution, wasn't for witches or luxury beauty retailers to claim. And apparently it's not for white witches to claim either. It's if you use sage, then you're culturally appropriating. And it's fuck you, I'm just going to use whatever I want to use. I'm sorry. I'm just ranting at this point. At its lowest point, witchcraft stopped being subversive or frightening and became just another costume, which, to a certain extent, I would say yes, it is now another costume for, stupid leftist people or any people of any stripe, because, you do see people on the right using that. It's just ridiculous. And mainstream witchcraft, it's just careful what you wish for at this point, because I remember seeing people saying, I wish witchcraft was more mainstream or it was more, accepted. And now we see it. And, materialism in the mainstream, and people are trying to commodify it now. And it's well, there you go. Happy now? Fuck. Or Sargon was right about that. It's like, if you don't like it, then don't buy it. I mean, that's the beauty of capitalism. If you don't support the business or what they're selling or anything like that, you have the choice not to buy. So don't buy it. That's easy. But the old dark power, the choice to worship something other than patriarchy's gods, ugh. To reject and read backward the narratives of the dominant culture was still there. The Trump administration represented a breaking point for many women. Well, I don't know, I'm not sure. After decades in which sophisticated thinkers dismissed patriarchy as simplistic or irrelevant, which I do, it was revealed to be alive? No. Well, and out for blood? No. The ethos which still ruled the U.S. government and defined or ended countless women's lives. Where did they do this? Where? I want to see where the concentration camps are, which so many people are claiming that are ending women's lives. Where are the women who are dying because they can't get an abortion or whatever? Yeah. The resurgence of patriarchy was partly embodied by Trump himself, whose fear of women. The whole grab them by the pussy thing, it's seriously makes me doubt he fears women. And embrace of sexual violence as a means of correcting them. Well, maybe, without asking them if they can grab them. Maybe there's that. And embrace of, was never less than 100% obvious. Trump was not only repeatedly accused of sexual assault, he boasted about pussy grabbing on tape, which is real funny because I once bought this shirt that said "Grab America by the Pussy," and I wish instead that I had bought a picture of Trump and Putin together on a horse on that one picture. I wish I bought that instead of that, but in some ways I wish I could have bought both, because both are seriously funny to me. I don't know if they are to you, but the 2016 election to me was a joke. So both of those would sufficiently convey that the 2016 election was a joke. In any case, I'm going to go on. But partly, this political awakening was just a matter of stripping back our denial to realize how we had always been living. Yes, Trump was accused of sexual misconduct, but so were several previous presidents. Yeah, Clinton. Yeah, he was a Democrat. Why aren't people condemning him? Yes, Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh was confirmed over reports of sexual assault, but the same thing had happened 30 years ago with Clarence Thomas. I'm not sure about Kavanaugh, because, we have Ford talking about it, but nobody was able to corroborate her story, if I recall correctly. Yes, Roe v. Wade was going to fall, but in most parts of the U.S., abortion access had been stripped so far down that it might be illegal. States' rights. I don't know what you want to say about that. I mean, you can criticize it, and I'm totally willing to listen, but that's the state's prerogative. Patriarchy had been the truth all along. Not really. I mean, women in the United States have had more rights than anywhere in the world. We have the right to vote. We have the right to work. We have now the right to financial freedom, all that sort of stuff. So I don't know, in comparison to other parts of the world, what you're talking about. It was a progress that was the phantom. Oh, progress is always a phantom, because everything can go back in a heartbeat. If you think about, if the modern world, especially here in the United States, were to fall back or shut off, it's what would you do if there was no electricity or water or anything? A lot of that would go back, because that's just the way things are when there's no technology around, or if there's no condoms or birth control, or a lot of that labor would fall back to women. A lot of the biological labor in terms of having kids and all that would fall back to women. So, you can thank a man for creating a lot of the things that we take for granted nowadays, like birth control, abortion, vacuuming, cleaning, a lot of the things that make life easier when it comes to that sort of thing. Yeah. I'm trying to go back to where I found. The witch lives between dark and daylight, the safely settled village, and the wild unknown of the woods beyond. The backlash years of the early 21st century revealed to many women something that we had always suspected. We have never belonged to that daylight world. Sure, in your own mind. We had tried, we had worked, we had been loyal to the rules and the values of society as we knew it, but no matter how far we thought we had come or how often our mothers told us we could do anything, or our dads, like my dad, oh my goodness. Like, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but my dad, like, with all of us, my two sisters and me, like, he expected us to go to college and have jobs. So, when it's like, you were expected to stay home and be, a baby maker. It's like, no, that's not the experience I had. And, everybody talks about their lived experiences and everything like that. And it's like, well, what about mine? Mine is just as valid as yours, right? I was always told, go to school, go to college, go get a job. And then you can get married and have kids and whatever. And your husband will be there for you when you do that sort of thing. So I guess my dad was more feminist than what these people think, because he was the one who was pushed that all the whole time. Yeah. But no matter how far we thought we had come, or how far our mothers told us we could do anything, we lived within a system that used female bodies as grists to maintain real rule. I lived a very different experience. And the story that patriarchy told about itself, which I don't believe in, we were always going to be the villains. And if that was the case, we might as well make some magic out of it. No, that's not why the reason why I became a pagan in the first place. If the village didn't want us, we might as well head out into the woods. There's a fire on the horizon. Ooh, you can see it burning. On the edges of the world, the violence we have survived. You didn't survive that violence. It was Christian women. Fuck. Can be our guide to what needs to be changed. A fire that burned the witches can be a fire that lights our way. Our power is waiting for us. Out in forbidden spaces, out beyond the world of men. Step forward and claim it. Step forward into the boundless and female dark. That is so fucking stupid. Yeah. What violence have you survived? Seriously. Those witches that you're talking about weren't witches. They were just regular Christian women. So what are you talking about in terms of surviving? Are you talking about surviving your own ridiculous mindset? That's the only thing I can think of. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave this here for right now. I'll bring up another particular article, and there should be 2 of them in there. And it's going to be real good, let me tell you that. But in this case, it's just bloody ridiculous. It's a false narrative that people have made throughout the years, saying that witches were, feminist icons, when in fact, like during the medieval period, it was women who, for being different in some way or for having property, they were accused of witchcraft, being taken advantage of by people's, moral fervor, and then being destroyed because of that. It wasn't because they were outspoken or because they were rebellious. And I think that's one of the problems that we have, that people do not understand history. So if you want to talk about more about this, let me know. The comments are open. I will hear from you, And send it up to you, everybody. I'll be in the next video. Bye.